Hi friends, for math today we have one more different time that we're going to practice telling. So far we've told time to the hour where we put a 00 in the minute spot and said o'clock. We also told time to the half hour where we put a 30 in the minutes spot and we read it as 30. And then earlier this week we learned about putting 15 in the minute spot and reading times with a 15 at the end. We've also mixed those all together, which gets pretty tricky. Today we're going to learn one more. Tomorrow we're going to mix everything together, the super challenge, and then on Friday we're going to do a fun project with time. Today we're going to be putting a new number in the minute spot, and this is the number that we are going to put. Go ahead and say that number out loud. Very good. That is the number 45. So for each of the times that we tell today, you're going to hear 45 at the end. Let me show you a few examples. If I wrote this time on the digital clock, I would read this as 3:45. If I saw this time on the digital clock, I would read this as 10:45. If I saw this time on the digital clock, I would read this as 11:45. Now you try one. If you saw this time on the digital clock, how would you read this time? Excellent. This time would be 5:45. Let's try one more. If you saw this number on the digital clock, this time, how would you read it? Very good, you got it. This would be read as 2:45. Just like we did with the other times, now we're going to be practicing 45, but with the analog clock, the trickier one. Let me get my analog clock out. We're going to have to move some of the hands from last time. Remember, on our analog clock, we have two different hands. The red hand is our hour hand, and the purple hand is our minute hand. Before we can read any times by moving the hour hand, we need to find where the minute hand is going to go. Remember, the clock usually only shows these red numbers. The purple numbers we're pretending are there, which would show the minutes. But how you can figure this out is start at the top of the clock and count by fives until you hear yourself count the number 45. Let's do that together. We'll start with 0. Everybody count with me. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. There it is. So today our minute hand, our longer hand, on our clock, remember it's purple, but it might not always be purple, is going to be pointing to the 9. That is the number that represents 45 in the minute place. Our red hand is going to be doing a little bit of moving around so we can read different times. I'll show you a few examples and then you'll try a few on your own. If I saw this number on the clock, I would read this as 1:45. If I saw this on the clock, I would read this as 4:45. Kind of like when we read for 30s, it's not always going to be pointing right at the 4. It's going to be not quite to the 5, so we'll always draw it back to the 4. If I read this time on the clock, I would read this as 6:45. Now you're going to try one. What would this time be on the analog clock? This one's a little bit tricky. Very good. This would be 3, because we draw it back, 45. Let's try one more since this is a little bit trickier. What would this time be on the analog clock? Very good. This would be 12:45. Excellent. For today's activity, you're going to be matching digital times to our analog clocks. They're all going to be 45. And then tomorrow we're going to try the super challenge of mixing all of the times that we have learned together.